You go on to say police departments traumatize residents through a destructive cycle of racist over-policing, and the answer is not to add any more money to police budgets. Talk to me about, why is it that denying policing to the most vulnerable communities is a solution? I know that's what the blue cities are doing, but why is that a good idea?
Well, look, I in no way stand with defunding law enforcement.
That's what your report says. Here's the answer. The answer is you don't have any solutions. You want to invest in gobbledygook and take away money from police officers who actually keep our community safe. And when you're called on the record, you deny it. It's all there in black and white. And your record is there in black and white, and it's a disgrace.
We reduced homicides by 31%. And as someone who's been shot and nearly killed.
Senator Hawley read from a Community Justice Action Fund, CJAF, playbook, tried to tie the group to well-known philanthropic networks, and then used an unfamiliar cultural term, two-spirit, to make the witness look out of touch.
I want to talk about some of these policies that have gotten to where we are today. Mr. Jackson, if I could just start with you. You were deputy director in the Biden White House for gun violence and a special assistant to the president. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You're also affiliated with the Community Justice Action Fund. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm also a survivor of gun violence.
You were their executive director. When was that, the Community Justice Action Fund?
2021 to 2023.
And you're affiliated with them now?
Yes, as executive advisor.
Okay. The Community Justice Action Fund, do you disclose your donors?
Yes.
All of the donors are public?
Yes.
You're funded by the Tides Advocacy Group, among others?
They're a fiscal sponsor.
This is, right.
They handle our
donor.
HR.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is a George Soros funded group?
No.
He's one of the donors?
No.
He's a donor to the Tides Advocacy Group.
Yeah, that's our fiscal sponsor. So they handle our HR, our back office, our operations.
Great. Okay. Great. So in other words,
we're one of 300 organizations.
Right. That they run. You are a subset of them.
Pay them to be a fiscal sponsor.
Well, you are a subset of that organization, which he helps to fund. Right. Okay. All right. Just wanted to get a level set here. So I want to ask you about some of the policies that you've advocated, because they're exactly what we see implemented in these blue cities, like defunding the police.
No.
Oh, indeed.
That's not. We advocate for.
Wait, I haven't asked a question yet. We'll get to. I've got a lot of questions. Believe me, and I'll give you time. So let's talk about this report that you issued when you were executive director, a policymaker's playbook. And I'll ask you to enter it into the record, Mr. Chairman.
Great.
Without objection.
Thank you. In this report, you advocate, and I quote now, defunding the police because the long-term goal is fundamentally to reimagine how the state serves its citizens in the project of public safety. You go on to say police departments traumatize residents through a destructive cycle of racist over-policing, and the answer is not to add any more money to police budgets. Talk to me about, why is it that denying policing to the most vulnerable communities is a solution? I know that's what the blue cities are doing, but why is that a good idea?
Well, look, I in no way stand with defunding law enforcement.
That's what your report says.
Sheriff Mike Sheridan, who taught me how to drive when I was 16 years old.
Wait. Your report, when your executive director said you wanted to defund the police, do you renounce this report? Mr. Jackson, do you renounce the report that you authored as executive director? Here it is.
You're the second senator to bring up an op-ed or
this is an op-ed. This is your report, a policymaker's playbook to reduce gun violence without policing communities.
Okay.
Community Justice Action Fund, copyright 2023, when you were executive director. Now you say you don't know anything about it. Now you say that you haven't heard of it, just like the Democrats who all of a sudden say, oh, we're all for the police. They've been advocating defunding them for years.
Okay, well, you can look at documents or you can look at results.
My question is, do you renounce this report now? You say you no longer agree with this.
And my answer is that I led the efforts to invest $42 billion in law enforcement.
You've advocated defunding the police as executive director of an organization that you still lead and are affiliated with.
Never see me advocate for that directly. What you see me advocate for is a comprehensive approach to reducing violence.
Right. The comprehensive approach is defund the police, which is what this says
the entire time.
This is so typical of what the Democrats do now. After your policies have transparently failed and led to the deaths of millions of Americans, now you say you've never heard of defunding the police. Your own report recommends it on page after page after page. Let me ask about something else you say. Here's what you say we ought to invest in. Instead of funding the police, here's what we ought to invest in. We need to invest in programs that acknowledge the need for safe space initiatives led by lesbian, gay, bisexual, two-spirit, trans, and gender nonconforming people. What's two-spirit?
Well, look, I don't know exactly. You guys are pulling some interesting quotes.
This is from your report.
If you look at the report, the focus is on investing in violence intervention, outreach workers.
You say that you shouldn't invest in the police, but we ought to invest in two-spirit community programs that acknowledge two-spirit
individuals. We are not going to discriminate against that. We're not going to discriminate against any nonprofit that wants to help us prevent violence in our community.
What is two-spirit? You say don't fund the police, but do fund programs that create safe spaces for two-spirit people. What is? I just want to know. I don't know what that is. I have no idea what that is.
Well, I honestly, I'm not completely aware of the language or
you
the spirit
wrote the
of
report.
How that was written. But what I'm telling you is that what
is a two-spirit individual? I mean, really, this is your policymaker's playbook. You are the witness called by the Democrats on this committee, so I assume you reflect their views. Well, you don't want to fund the police. You want to fund safe spaces for two-spirit individuals. What is a two-spirit person?
I feel like I'm looking at a two-faced individual because you talk about reducing
violence. Oh, no, sir.
Violence.
You're looking at somebody who's reading you your own words, and I'd like to hear an answer.
Programs.
Here's the answer. The answer is you don't have any solutions. You want to invest in gobbledygook and take away money from police officers who actually keep our communities safe, and when you're called on the record, you deny it. It's all there in black and white, and your record is there in black and white, and it's a disgrace.
We reduced homicides by 31%, and as someone who's been shot and nearly killed, I take offense that you would think that the last 13 years
you won't answer my
we're not
questions,
focused on
that
reducing
you deny
violence.
your own words, and that you are leading this committee astray. And frankly, sir, your policies are absurd. They're absurd.
That made for a headline, but headlines aren't policy. The real story is about two things. First, what experts are actually proposing to reduce gun violence, and second, how easily a complex public health approach can be caricatured in a 30-second soundbite. Who is the witness and why his words matter? Greg Jackson Jr. is a survivor of gun violence who went on to lead community violence work and served as deputy director in the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. In his testimony, he pointed to bipartisan investments and credited a mix of federal resources and community programs for large drops in homicides in several cities. That's important context. He's not a random advocate. He was inside the federal effort and is arguing for a multi-pronged approach, not an either-or slogan. So what's in the CJAF playbook that Hawley read from? The playbook is a policy toolkit that centers community-led strategies, things like violence interruption outreach, survivor supports, victim services, and programs that create safe spaces for people who have been targeted by violence. The language about safe space initiatives and naming specific communities, including two-spirit people, came straight from those materials. But the playbook's thrust is not to abolish public safety. It emphasizes community interventions alongside enforcement tools that stop illegal guns and prosecute traffickers. In short, it's trying to broaden the toolkit for communities disproportionately affected by gun violence. That brings us to the defund framing. The exchange made it sound like Jackson and allies want to pull every dollar from police departments. But his testimony and the broader policy literature show that advocates and many Democrats have been pushing for a blended strategy. Keep the investigative and anti-trafficking work the police do, while also funding on-the-ground outreach workers, mental health support, and programs that stop conflicts before they explode. Jackson explicitly pointed to bipartisan laws and federal investments that included both law enforcement and community violence intervention. The slogan defund makes for a viral clip. It does not capture the nuance of these proposals. Let's be practical. Do community-based interventions work? The evidence is increasingly positive but still nuanced. Multiple evaluations of CVI models, like the Cure Violence approach, show measurable reductions in shootings and homicides in places where programs are well-designed and adequately funded. At the same time, systematic reviews note that the research base is growing and that outcomes depend on program fidelity, local implementation, and sustained investment. The lesson: these are promising, evidence-driven tools, not magic bullets, and they need sustained funding, evaluation, and coordination with law enforcement where appropriate. A quick note about the two-spirit line. That term is an indigenous, culturally specific identity used by some Native and First Nations people to describe gender and spiritual roles that don't fit Western binaries. It's not gobbledygook, it's a legitimate cultural term with historical and contemporary meaning. Hawley's dramatic "what is that?" question played for laughs. The better approach is simple civility. When policy references groups you don't know, a hearing can be a place to learn, not to perform ignorance. Explaining terms respectfully helps people see why tailored outreach, for example, culturally competent supports, can matter in violence prevention. Why this matters beyond Capitol Hill theater. Public safety is personal. Gun violence survivors like Greg Jackson bring lived experience to policy, and their proposals aim to stop the next life from being lost. Federal funding decisions have real consequences. When federal CVI funding was cut, programs lost traction. Conversely, when the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act and other investments flowed, agencies were able to scale proven approaches. That's why the argument matters. It's not ideological hair-splitting, it's about whether communities have access to outreach workers, trauma counseling, and coordinated efforts to disrupt gun trafficking. How to judge the politics separate from the policy. Watch for two things when you see hearing clips like this. First, parse whether a critic is quoting recommendations in full context or selectively amplifying a line for shock value. Second, look at outcome data. Are homicides and shootings going down where these blended strategies are implemented? If you want to be a responsible consumer of this debate, read the playbooks and the evidence summaries, not just the sound bites, and ask whether proposals include evaluation and sustained funding commitments. A human moment to close. Gregory Jackson's story, surviving a near-fatal shooting and then choosing public service, is why these policy fights feel so raw. He and others are arguing from a combination of evidence and lived experience. Invest in interventions that stop violence, but don't abandon core public safety work like stopping illegal gun trafficking and prosecuting violent criminals. The choice we face as a public is not police or people, but what mix of proven tools will actually make neighborhoods safer. If you care about this issue, call your representative and ask them to support evidence-based funding for community violence intervention and anti-trafficking enforcement. These are not partisan luxuries. They are the nuts and bolts of keeping neighborhoods safe.